This is the latest model, precision engineered for long-range engagements. Notice the improved scope and stock design. You need to adjust your stance. It's all wrong.
I know what I'm doing. Watch and learn.
Snipers stood behind their rifles. Men who had trained in the most unforgiving terrains on Earth. Men whose names were synonymous with precision, focus, and unshakable nerves. Yet each of them now carried the same frustration in their eyes. They had all taken their shots, and they had all failed. 3,000 meters. A target barely wider than a man's shoulders, moving slowly, unpredictably, and shielded by mirage like heat distortion rising from the desert floor. The shot was theoretically possible, but impossible in every practical sense, unless miracles counted as tactics. The commanders inside the observation tent watched the monitors with tightening jaws. Every missed shot felt heavier than the last, because this mission wasn't a training exercise, and the stakes weren't measured in medals, they were measured in lives. A hostile convoy was advancing toward a remote village where civilians had no idea what was coming. Only one shot could disable the lead vehicle and stall the movement long enough for ground forces to evacuate them. One shot, one chance, and 14 of the world's best couldn't make it. Chief Commander Halden slammed his fist onto the table, startling the officers around him. "We're out of time," he barked. "We need that convoy stopped in the next 8 minutes." A calm voice rose from the back of the tent. "Let me do it." Every head turned. Lieutenant Maya Rios stood in the doorway, her face emotionless, her posture as straight as a drawn blade. She was a Navy SEAL, one of the few women to ever complete the program, and more importantly, she was the ghost-like sniper whose record was whispered about in training halls but never bragged about by her. Some said she could slow her heartbeat to a crawl. Some said she could read the wind-like language. Some said she never missed. Halden exhaled harshly. "Rios, this isn't your assignment." She stepped forward. 14 men have tried. Let me try before the civilians pay the price." There was strength in her tone, not aggressive, not loud, simply steady. Unshakable. Halden hesitated only a second. "You've got 6 minutes left." She nodded once and walked past the frustrated snipers, their pride silently aching, though not one of them dared to speak against her. She moved with the confidence of someone who didn't need attention, didn't need acknowledgement, only the rifle, the wind, and the distance. The moment she reached the firing platform, the entire military base seemed to hold its breath. Maya lay down behind the long-range rifle, adjusting the bipod, the stock, and the cheek rest with swift precision. She didn't try to force the weapon into her hands, she shaped the weapon around herself. Her spotter, Sergeant Cole, knelt beside her, speaking softly. "Target 3,000 meters, moving east to west, speed constant, wind is." "I know," Maya whispered. Cole blinked. "You already calculated it." She didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on the shimmering horizon, on the tiny distant speck that represented life or death. Her breathing slowed, her pulse softened. Inside her mind, numbers didn't appear as math, they appeared as motion. Distances weren't measurements, they were terrain. Wind wasn't resistance, it was rhythm. The world around her faded until there was only the scope. She steadied her breath. In, hold, out, settle. The heat distortion danced like ghosts across the sand. A normal shooter would fear it. Maya watched it, learned from it, understood its pattern. Cole swallowed. "You have 4 minutes. I need 30 seconds. Her gloved finger rested on the trigger with the softness of a pianist touching ivory. She whispered, "Set." The base fell silent. Even the wind seemed to pause. Then, the shot echoed like thunder. The recoil pressed into her shoulder, firm but familiar. The bullet tore through 3,000 meters of unpredictable air, cutting through wind shifts and heat shimmer with almost unnatural grace. 2 seconds later, the convoy's lead vehicle erupted in a burst of dust and smoke as the engine block shattered from a perfect hit. The entire tent cheered. Men who had never celebrated a shot in their lives shouted her name. Even Commander Halden's usually stone-hard face broke into a grin. Cole stared at her in disbelief. How did you calculate that so fast?" Maya finally exhaled and sat up. "The wind wasn't constant," she said softly. "It was pulsing every 6 seconds because of the canyon draft. If you shoot between the pulses, the bullet cuts clean." Cole blinked again. No one else noticed that. Her lips twitched, almost a smile. "I wasn't listening with my ears." Before he could ask what she meant, the radiation alarm in the tent beeped again. New intel flashed across the monitors. The convoy survivors had radioed backup, and a second wave of armored vehicles was now approaching. Worse, they carried equipment that could level the small village in minutes. Halden rushed out. "We have more incoming. Multiple armored units. We need the road blocked permanently. That means hitting the ridge above them." Another long shot. Cole turned to Maya. "That ridge is, what, 2,500 meters? 2,460, she corrected quietly. "And it's uphill, with shifting crosswind." A nearby sniper muttered, "Not even she can hit that." Maya didn't respond. She simply walked back to the firing platform and replaced the magazine. Her silence was its own language. The second shot required more than precision. It required reading a mountain, predicting turbulence, calculating elevation, humidity, temperature, and rotational drift, all in seconds. She lowered herself back into position. Cole gave the elevation data. She didn't acknowledge it, but he knew she'd heard. Her muscles relaxed until she was more still than the rifle itself. She had mastered something many shooters never understood: the art of eliminating the self, of becoming an extension of the weapon, of letting the shot travel through intention rather than force. 1 minute, Cole warned. "I only need 20. This time, she didn't exhale before the trigger pull. She inhaled, held, and inside that stillness, she fired. The bullet climbed the air like it had a mind of its own, riding the exact path she had chosen for it. When it reached the ridge, it struck the point where the rock was weakest. A split second later, a thunderous avalanche of stone collapsed onto the narrow pass below, sealing the path permanently, blocking all enemy advance. The second wave halted. The civilians were safe. The mission was complete. The base erupted again, louder than before. Halden walked to her personally, placing a hand on her shoulder. "2 impossible shots in one operation," he said. "I've been in command for 23 years, I've never seen anything like that." Maya stood, dusting off her gloves. "It wasn't impossible, just unread." Halden shook his head. "You're a ghost, Rios. A damn good one." She didn't smile, didn't gloat, didn't carry herself like a hero. She simply gathered her rifle, slung it over her back, and walked toward the horizon as if the earth itself had whispered the exact path her feet needed to follow. Behind her, 14 elite snipers watched in quiet awe. Their pride wasn't wounded anymore. It had transformed into respect, deep and honest. One of them murmured, "She didn't beat us. She showed us what was possible." In the distance, Maya continued walking, her figure shrinking against the vast desert, blending with silence. She didn't crave recognition, applause, or medals. She lived for the shot, for the math of the wind, for the stillness between heartbeats, for the lives saved so quietly no one would ever know what she had done. And somewhere out there, in the stretch of quiet land, the silent Navy SEAL woman moved like a shadow with purpose, unstoppable, unseen, and unmatched. Because for her, impossible was nothing more than a challenge waiting to be understood.